get things going with Jakob.
Yeah, we are so happy to be here with Jakob and everyone. So yeah, so nice. So we like to start our meetings with a very brief breathing exercise. So we can be everybody in the same mood because we have like different time zones and different like settings, and also people are working or some people in the house. So just to be all together in the same kind of mood or space. So if you want, you can just turn off your camera.
Welcome, Aubrey. We just started.
Yeah, welcome, Aubrey. And you can just feel your feet on the ground, and if you want, you can just close your eyes, be inside, feel your body, and breathe. You don't need to change anything, just breathe more consciously. And then when you inhale, you can feel your heartbeats, and exhale through your mouth. So inhale through your nose, very deep, and hold, and exhale. And just feel your presence and quiet your mind. And when you're ready, just open your camera. And here we are. So happy to be here. And I'm gonna put in the chat a little bit about what it's our purpose here. So a safe space to share and explore and learn together. And yeah, we are gonna be here for 90 minutes, and just be aware of all the distractions you may have in your surroundings or your phones and everything. And if you want, some people like me, like a paper and pen, so I have it right here. So you can have it too. And over to you, Fernando. You introduce our special guest, please.
I'll just talk a little bit about Jakob. We met a few times, and I have been visiting lots of events at the Butter community. So Butter, it's a product. It's an amazing video conference tool full of features. Now there is a new chapter coming. But beyond the tool and the features and everything that we have in our hands, there is a huge community of nice facilitators all over the planet, very alive. So it's a very good place to be connected and to learn, to share. So, and it comes from Jakob. So you are the the founder. You are the man behind this idea. So welcome, and thank you for making the time to be with us.
Thanks for having me, Fernando. Really appreciate it. And again, it's been super cool knowing you as well, and seeing all the things that you've brought forth to the facilitation world. Really glad to have had you as part of many of the Butter events. And honestly, I can say, after having talked to you quite a few times, you're one of the people that are really driving forward what facilitation is. So very proud and happy to be here today. Where to start? Let me start with just a little bit about what Butter is, or at least what you're in right now, right? So want to hear just a little bit about you guys first. So what's kind of your confidence in planning and hosting online workshops? If I kind of just take it from yeah, Linda, go. Okay, yeah, Fernando, I know you. Yeah. So okay, that's awesome. I see a lot of ninjas. A lot of very, very, very deadly ninjas. David is slightly not as deadly ninja, but still kind of deadly. That's cool. All right. Okay. I see. I am among experts. So this is going to be a very lovely session. I hope it's also a session where you guys will contribute, ask questions. I'm far from all knowing. I just have strong opinions on a lot of random stuff. So would love to hear from you guys as the session progresses. So you and Butter, which is this video conferencing tool, which is built for facilitation, built for workshops, and there are a number of ways you can interact or just without necessarily talking loudly show your opinion. Sorry for the noise coming in there. I live quite next to a hospital, so yeah. But again, you can use the emojis here. You can just use the number keys 1 through 0 on the mobile phone. There's also the little emoji in the lower part of it. And feel free to react. If you have anything you want to say, feel free to use the Q on the left-hand side as well. You can just plop yourself in there, and we as facilitators can highlight you guys. Use the chat. We're always monitoring it. Like I know that Fernando is totally a chat pro. You can just see how Fernando and Carolina has structured the chat responses already. So and I hope that you guys will use that too if there's anything. You can take notes as well on the left-hand side if you want them. We also got like personal notes, so they'll be sent to you after. Yeah, V for M for mic mute on off, and V for video on off. Just a few, in case you need a little help there. So that's it on Butter. Another thing I would love to hear then, especially given that you guys are pretty experienced. I'd love to hear kind of what you think online facilitation could be like in 5 years from now. What would the headline be? So if you had to just like, I think one headline, maybe it could be even one word. What do you guys think it could be? I'm honestly pretty curious to hear from a crowd like you guys. Connections go beyond the screen's default and includes all. Yeah, I like that. Let's see. That's beautiful. That's beautiful, Tolu. Online workshops, just as good, if not better than on-site. Again, that's something after my heart, building something for online workshops. But 8-hour read the slides allowed online events declared fine. That's quite the headline. I very much like that as a headline. If that happens as a headline, like seriously, I'm gonna donate all my wealth to some random foundation that supports that shit. I love this stuff. Feel free to keep it coming. I think this is super interesting. Just give another half minute or something like that. It's totally fine if you guys don't have anything top of your mind, but it's really interesting to see. Right. Every face on the planet will be accessible. Like that, very much also the remote world coming into play in terms of workshops. Right. There's a lot of stuff here, right? Again, there's no doubt that facilitation has changed quite a lot. I think, not especially since COVID, but over the past 20 years, I'd say. But things have been really fast forwarded, and everything has been thrown up in the air after people started kind of knowing, especially virtual facilitation after COVID. A lot of people, or some people, were experts in this prior to COVID. I'm looking at you guys, Fernando and Carolina, but I think that COVID did open up the world to a whole new bunch of things. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about kind of where we are coming from with Butter. So we started Butter out. Now it's a little over 4 years ago. I'm the CEO and co-founder of this. It might not be as interesting. Studied at Copenhagen Business School. Started my career as consultant in what's now Bain Company, a strategy consultant. Was there for close to 4 years. Moved to Indonesia to build a digital marketing agency. So I was in Indonesia for close to 3 years, and then moved to Hong Kong afterwards. We sold it. Back to Denmark in 2018, where I'm from. I'm based in Copenhagen, and made the jump into founding the first kind of digital product. It was a content discovery platform for online streamers. Honestly, we failed horribly, but we learned a ton about especially working remotely. That kind of brought us to build Butter, because that was a bit too long. After we shut down our previous company, we were a few people that stuck together because we thought that there was something special about remote work. And you'll see the three co-founders here: Adam, Chris, and myself. So Chris and I were from Denmark, and Adam, he's Malaysian. And we thought there was something special about remote work because we'd built a fully remote company. We saw the power of being able to recruit people from everywhere, being able to work from everywhere. And that was right when COVID struck in early 2020. So we thought, okay, maybe this remote thing is really interesting, but we don't know exactly what we want to build around this remote thing. So we started facilitating workshops around remote work. We thought, okay, we learned a lot about remote work. Again, I've been consulting for many years. I have been quite familiar with with how to do remote work, so how to do workshops. So let's see if we can at least facilitate some workshops around doing great remote work. And that was when it struck us. Remote workshops were really, really difficult to facilitate versus and very different to facilitate than in-person workshops. Zoom was, at the very least at that time, I think they've improved a ton, but in 2020, it was definitely not built for complex meetings and collaboration. They barely had breakouts. They had breakouts, but they're very basic at that time. I think it's the only tool. It was very difficult to kind of get energy up, excitement up, to get people engaged. Needed a lot of different tools to do that. So I think we used Miro together with Mentimeter, together with Kahoot to create, and of course, PowerPoint presentations or slides, I think it was Google Slide presentations, to create some kind of cohesive, interactive experience. But it's just really, really difficult. So we founded Butter with this idea of solving two of the biggest problems as we saw them in virtual facilitation, namely technical friction and building energy and engagement in the session itself. Oh yeah, Menti's a beaut. And we kind of thought that we do that in 3 ways with the tool we built, namely allowing people to prepare a lot of stuff before the session, run all of these things in one tool during the session, and allow people to recap all of these various workshops post-session, to be able to kind of have a full workflow across the sessions. So and then we also designed Butter as a more inherently interactive experience with, you've used the emojis. What you have not heard yet is the sound effects as well, and the videos that you can run. You might see the music, but again, just a lot of ways to create interactivity and engagement throughout the session. Guess a few more facts around Butter. We believe it's the best way to run and plan highly engaging sessions, and we're a fully remote team across 7 different countries, mostly Europe and Asia at the moment. So that should tell you just a little bit about Butter and what we've been building so far. What we've also realized is that building things in video conferencing is difficult, and there's been a lot of constraints in these areas. But before I kind of go into more of that stuff. I again want to just get a few thoughts from you on online facilitation. So would love to hear just a few thoughts from you guys on some of the best workshops that you guys have had, and what, if you just think of the best workshop on your mind that you've had, it could be either one that you facilitated or one that you participated in. What made that one special? Like, if you could just think of a few, if you could make it concrete, and then think of a few words around that session that kind of made it special. Would love to hear it. Right, Linda, yeah, lots of experiential learning, structured breakout rooms, structured breakout room time, yeah. Experiential learning, that's cool. If people can do it, it's tough, but when people do it, it's incredible. Let me just take you guys out. Here we go. Leaned heavily on mentee Q&A. That's interesting. With an expert plan plus some seed questions, made very ad hoc interactive. Okay. Would you, Aubrey, would you mind just what's an example of some of those seed questions? Would love to hear that, because that sounds interesting. Oh, I think mic might be off. Try looking at the mic selector in the upper left-hand side, or just drop it in chat. That's all right too. Yeah. I know that feeling. All right, no worries. Facilitator connected with. Now we go. Yeah, go.
There we go. Sorry, I borrowed a headset and it was sitting near the charger, but that doesn't actually charge the battery. So what we did is, it was a panel on career growth within the organization. So what we did is we had several people whose career had actually grown in the organization. Like, they went from like volunteer all the way up to like managerial and executive level positions. And from the very start, Mentee's Q&A tool was accessible to the audience. But we started off with some questions that we had pre-planned for each of them. So they kind of passed the microphone around and answered them. And as we took the like 10, 15 minutes it did to do that, questions then started to come in from people wanting more information about specific topics and things like that. And we were able to kind of fill out the rest of the session, taking those ad hoc questions as they came in. So
that makes sense. So using those ad hoc questions that's what you meant by seed, because they kind of seeded a very ad hoc session that kind of spread into interesting directions.
Yeah, because we didn't have time to like tell like everybody's full story. Then the questions around like, oh, you said that you were on the front desk and then you were a manager. Like, how did you make that particular hop? Because somebody cared about that. Then we went into that. So that way we didn't try and cram everybody's life story into an hour.
That makes sense. That's always difficult, right? This managing, like having everyone interact, but not having everyone interact all the time. And I guess that's also Don. Is that correct? Don? Hope I'm not butchering your name.
It's Don.
Excellent. Good. So again, the whole facilitator connecting to us individually and as a whole, because connecting individually with a ton of people is very difficult. So how did you see that happening in that session?
It was more so in the chat, and when there were like more than one person, I believe, that was kind of working alongside each other. So somebody was in the chat answering people individually. Yep. And then the connection as a whole was more so through the breakout groups, but also, once somebody maybe had said something that was, that highlighted in with the way that the person was facilitating. So I just felt like even if they weren't able to talk to us individually, there was still a recognition, and that felt good.
That's super nice. Yeah. Facilitators honored how participants chose to engage and foster connections among participants. Again, there's the connection bit. people feel connected and do not feel time comes by. That's awesome, right? Conducted sense-making workshop, breakout rooms, great. There's something about breakout rooms, right? Again, both you, Linda, and Abiyat mentioned it. Experiential learning and liberating structures. I'm actually a little bit curious there. Also from you, Linda, you mentioned this lots of experiential learning. What's an example of really strongly created experiential learning? Upper left-hand side for the unmute, if that's what you're looking for.
I was trying to use this shortcut. So, so the main training I'm thinking about, we used scaling intimacies kind of overall design for the workshop. And so we want to get people from X to Y. And the pinnacle moment was getting them in a breakout room to practice the skill that they had just learned about. So everybody got a chance to lead the group, basically. And so after they led the group, or, you know, it was just well designed. We got them involved in role modeling what they were going to do. They saw it, then they got to act it out, and then they just would do one part of it, and then we would do this hand gesture of like, now pretend like you've done it for everybody, and then, you know, sort of just a well thought out plan in the small group where everyone left feeling like I can run that group because I have already done a simulation basically of what I'm ultimately going to do.
Yeah, so they all got kind of they all got hands-on practice with the structure itself from the session.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep. And yeah, so I felt like at the end, and then we also used it in, like, they did that as the main thing that would happen for an hour. So a third of the 3-hour training was that. And there wasn't even a need for a break because that hour where they were just in their small group served as a relaxed, connected with just 4 people probably. The last hour could just be integrating what they learned and debriefing. So they already saw it in the first hour, they did it, and then the last hour could be like integrating into their brains.
Nice.
So yeah.
That makes sense. I like the whole thoughts. So there's something about the hands-on learning, something about making sure that it's experiential learning, something about connections. I like that. Breakout rooms. Anything else that you guys want to highlight that you find particularly interesting? Some kind of really mind-blowing workshop experience that you saw or experienced you want to share?
Yes. Hi. I was late. Sorry. I was expecting to be authorized to join. Something happened, but I would like to highlight that probably one of my best experiences when I received a training for online facilitation, for virtual facilitation from Hector Villarreal and Carolina and Fernando. And because it was 3 years ago, and what made it very positive for me was because they promoted connections, created a good learning environment, and because they were very, very precise when giving us instructions and paying attention to make everybody feel comfortable, not ignorant, not stressed because the use of the different platforms. And it was very, very positive. I'm done.
That's wonderful to hear. I think that just confirms my view of Fernando and Carolina and team is just lovely, wonderful individuals that are really driving facilitation forward. So yeah. All right. So want to just take a minute more here to reflect a little bit. Again, in silence, use the notes on the left-hand side or personal pen, everything's fine, to reflect on these questions. So again, what concrete actions are we doing right now? Like, and again, it's always nice to think about the last workshop that you guys facilitated, right? Are we doing now that make our workshops feel special, that make your workshop feel different than other workshops, and very, very much taking maybe some pages out of Fernando's and Carolina's books and the Virtual Facilitation team's books. Just take a minute here to reflect on this. Was a minute too quick. Let's see. Right. Let's see. Anyone want to share like a few concrete actions that you guys did in your last workshop that really made them feel special, where you went away with like a feeling of, okay, this was pretty cool. This had an impact.
One thing that I remember, Jacob, it was funny because I remember something that made the workshop special, and then the other one that was not special. Actually was not special at all. It's making the purpose very clear. So everybody who was in the meeting was really keen to be there. So it was a face-to-face event, 2 days, and 6 people were online attending the same workshop. So it's my record being online with people like 2 days in a row, 8 hours, but they were keen to be there. So it was very clear. We just make the bridge using online to connect these guys. They were scattered all over Canada. So purpose is key. And recently we have the same experience, and it was awful because the purpose was not clear. So people are there and they're not supposed to be there, this kind of thing. So yeah, it's so simple. Make the purpose clear, just get the right people in the room. But when we don't do that,
not setting the framing right, both people and purpose.
Yeah.
Anyone else wants to share? And I'm putting you guys on the spot here in the morning. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I can share something. Yeah, the purpose is very important, but also to know people, know their stories, and know each one. So if you have a cohort or you have a group of people, you know everybody by their names, and as much as you can about their story, why they are there, their individual purpose there. We have sometimes the purpose of the organization or the meeting, but a little bit of each, and then we can have the all together. Yeah.
Yes, I agree with Fernando and Carolina, and I would like to highlight the connections between people, between facilitator and the group, and between all participants, and being very well prepared for the session, more than usually for face-to-face workshops, and be prepared to use the time in a precise way, and at the same time be prepared to flow with the process for surprises, for new things.
Yep. So a lot of that stuff comes to being comes to the preparation fit. The workshop is only as successful as both the people you invite, the purpose, the preparation you have, and then during the workshop, it's about taking what you've prepared, but also being able to flow with whatever directions that you end up having. Makes sense. All right. Thanks for sharing. So I guess a few more things that I want to hear you guys about. Like, again, now we talked a little bit about like what types of workshops, the last workshops that you guys were part of that were really successful. We highlighted what bits you guys thought were important during workshops. What are the big failures that you guys have seen where things go really wrong? Like, what are and I think you mentioned a little bit, you alluded to it, Fernando, you already took my question away from me before I came with it, but I want to make sure that we also kind of take that flip side of thing and maybe let's make it a little bit different than just not being prepared, but let's take other examples of where things just go absolutely horribly wrong. Any crazy war stories there that you guys want to share, or examples, or just high level reflections of where you've seen things go really wrong? You're welcome to also use the cue there on the left hand side if you all want to talk at once. Go ahead, Linda.
I think Carolina is before me.
Yeah, I think Carolina. Sorry. Was absolutely shitty facilitation.
Yeah, so I think it's when the invitation is not clear. So you prepare for a collaboration, but then people come as a kind of a radio, or they're waiting for a presentation, and you want them to participate, and so there's this mismatch of purpose there. This is terrible.
I hope you guys came ready to participate. I'm terribly sorry if I didn't make that yet. Go ahead, Linda.
That.
Very similar thing. Not only people coming to consume, but also when there's expertise in the room and it's not being tapped. So it's like a subtle thing, but it's just like, are you kidding? You have this lame speaker out of some expert when you have somebody who actually knows on the ground what the community needs. It's terrible.
Yep. 100%. Fernando. Wait, you're muted. You're still muted.
Yeah, reading lips is a skill that people develop along the time. But one big mistake that we made a long time ago, we stopped doing because it's so terrible. When you mismatch the technical abilities from the group, so the group is there, ready to contribute, to participate, but you fit in a tool that they can't manage, they can use like a Miro or any kind of whiteboard or something that they can access, or people are using a cell phone to join so they can't see anything. This kind of mismatch is terrible. You create so much frustration in the room that people just leave the meeting. They just, well, I'm here. They just leave it.
Oh man, you're speaking to the choir there again. Technical frustrations is something that we at least somewhat that I spent all my waking hours and too many of my sleeping hours as well on thinking about how to crack. I'll get back to that. Aubrey.
So I made a joke about it earlier about reading the slides being class. It's even more boring. It's even more boring online than it is in person. But the other one that we've had happen a few times is somebody who's a presenter decides day of that they're going to actually just try and call, like this was supposed to be something that they would be in person for, and they've decided at the last minute that they actually want to join virtually, and they're like, yeah, there's a camera in the room, it should be fine. And it's like, we didn't structure the content thinking that you weren't going to be here. Like, yeah, we have remote learners, but we didn't structure it thinking that you'd be remote. Your material is in weird places, and it ends up like disrupting our flow. We end up taking 20 minutes fighting with tech issues and things. We're happy to do either in-person, hybrid, or remote. We can make it work, but it's when those pieces start shuffling an hour before showtime that now everything's completely fallen apart, and we're managing that stuff instead of paying attention to the learners.
Makes a lot of sense. It sounds like you're speaking from horrible experience there. Yeah. Yeah, Linda.
So I just left a job of 17 years where people are just very passive. They did not even come onto the screen, and no one was working to make them feel comfortable coming on the screen. It wasn't even like a goal. Ultimately, we would like people to actually be paying attention to the meeting. Wasn't even on the radar. If you don't feel comfortable, you can keep your video off. And it was not even a goal, because we just know, it was like, we know all the problems of phone conferences. Person is kind of paying attention, you can't really have a meeting. So just like not having a well-structured meeting where people feel like, I'm only going to be asked for 15 minutes, and I'm going to be fully engaged for that 15 minutes. And we'll do the pre-work and we'll do the post-work, but for that 15 minutes, we really need you engaged. So I feel like there's kind of a respect, but there's clearly a psychological safety thing going on that people don't feel comfortable. It's just like, did you come to work with a bag over your head? No, you would not. You are being paid to do this work, and somehow you can't have your damn video on. This is it's just like, I get it during COVID. I work in public health, so I am sensitive to that. Like, people had all kinds of shit going on, but after that, hey, you just got a bad start to something that is just lame. If we just have your audio, and when we see your video, we can say, oh, okay, that person is upset. There's clearly a lot of chaos going on in their environment. It's just so much more cues to what the hell is going on with this person, versus not even really identifying it as a goal to get people in a place where they can, So just frustration with low standards, I guess.
Yep. Look, I mean, when I speak with facilitators, like, I'd say the number one frustration I continuously hear is facilitating to people who don't put their video on. And there are a lot of, like, I've heard like the first 20 hacks or ways of getting people to kind of get their video on. But I think like what you're pointing out there is actually at the crux of the matter, because it's not about hacking your way to getting people on. It's not, I don't think it's always the facilitator's responsibility to try to kind of get people to get the video on. It's very much also the, again, the respect of the participants, or just checking in, or like this agreement that you have to have as a participant that, okay, if you're in this type of session, especially a workshop session where you expect people to be in, then it's necessary to have that level, for the facilitator to have this level of fidelity, and for everyone else to have that level of fidelity that you can only have if you have the cues that come with video. So I very much hear you, and I think the rest of the facilitator community is screaming loudly in agreement. So, yeah. Ximena?
Yes, I was ready to say exactly what Fernando explained about trying to use very complex platforms or tools, or complex for people that don't have very good technical skills. It makes people feel frustrated or resistant. And I think that we as facilitators must stimulate always participation. And when you make feel people incompetent or frustrated, you are doing exactly the opposite to stimulate participation. And I also think that we must stimulate positive communication. And it's very, very difficult to communicate with black screens. So I try to make agreements or commitments, not only agreements, commitments to keep the cameras on when I'm making the negotiation with the client since the beginning. And I'm really clear saying I will not work with people without cameras at all. It's different when you are in the session and someone has problems and needs to, with connection and needs to turn off the camera. But you have seen them at the beginning at least. And I explain it talking about communication. We cannot communicate in the same way if we cannot see each other. In a kind way, but in a firm way at the same time.
Yep. I very much hear you. I think it's a big thing. I also just want to highlight again. Tolu has an important point here in chat, which is, and I think there are always exceptions, right? I think that's very important, both to Linda and you punch me out. Like again, there's always exceptions to this, right? As Tolu says, like it's important to note that allowing participants to choose how they engage in an important way to be accessible. For example, some neurodivergent participants might find it more difficult to pay attention when required to be on camera, and thus default to performing attention rather than paying attention. And I agree. There's always exceptions to the rule, and I think it's important. But I think then it's important to be specific about those exceptions, and it is important and I think it is also the participant's responsibility to say, hey, if I am on camera, then I feel uncomfortable in terms of paying attention. So I will be off camera. I also, by the way, think that, again, we in Butter have the hide self feature. Zoom has it as well. I use it almost religiously because otherwise I end up just focusing on my own mirror image. And as Tolu also points out, like performing. Yeah. Aubrey, do you want to just say it out loud what you just wrote in chat? Because I think that's quite interesting.
Sure. Yeah. So let's see. Yeah. So I was asking what people told folks back. I totally had started to dive into it as well, because I think that there's a lot of different factors that hold people back from it, because I really am of two minds. Like on the one hand, like you said, it is so much harder to teach to black boxes. Like, I don't know how you feel. I can't read anything off your expression. I can't see all the little cues. But also at the same time, having your camera on all the time, you do feel a little bit on the witness stand, per se. At least I can sometimes. Like, I want to be sitting up straight, and I want to make sure that I look decent. And like, I got a text a second ago from a coworker asking me a question. I don't want to look like I'm doing this the whole time, because that's but you know, it's definitely a more regimented form of interaction, which is a limit of the technology. And if I'm going to be in a session for like 2 hours or something like that, sometimes I'm going to be like this, and I'm still going to be listening. So I think it's difficult. So I am curious where people are at on that one, because I really do see both sides of it. Whoops.
Is that making a statement? No, I don't judge. No, I totally hear you, Aubrey. I totally hear you. I guess people, you guys are welcome to up a bit there. Yeah, Tolu.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah, so honestly, this is a topic that I've been thinking about and wrestling with a lot, because as everyone says, as a facilitator, I definitely prefer when people have their cameras on, but I've also, I don't know, I think I've been a lot more connected, not only with like accessibility and disability communities, but also others who have really challenged my thinking in this area. So in my personal practice, I always invite people. So I'll say at the start of the session, you know, I invite you to turn your cameras on, but I 100% understand if you choose not to. And I wanted to share, if it's okay, there's an excerpt from a book that I think really hits on like what's really like challenged me to rethink this practice. So is it okay to read it aloud, or should I? Okay. So it says, as learning designers, we've encountered one question time and time again about video conferencing. Should video call participants be required to have their cameras on? This is a well-intentioned question because it suggests to us that learning facilitators would like to see the facial expressions and reactions of learners on their calls. Reading facial expressions and body language can be an important way to gauge interest, engagement, and focus. But just because someone looks engaged doesn't mean that they are actually engaged. And many folks who don't look engaged on camera could very well be intensely focused. If you're relying upon the visual cues of your participants to tell if they're actively engaged in the call, you're relying upon a pretty narrow band of information. When you judge participation based on how someone looks or acts on the call, you may be lured into acting upon implicit biases that you may have about the people on your calls. To put it more bluntly, judging participation and engagement based on whether participants are smiling, nodding, or looking focused may reinforce the whole set of biases that could be ableist, ageist, sexist, and racist. Think about the pressures on women to smile in professional settings, for example. Otherwise, they may seem mean or angry. Or think about the pressures on people of color to appear amiable so that they don't seem intimidating. As a facilitator, it might feel good for you to see faces, but for your participants, putting on appearances in front of the camera could cause a bundle of worries that might distract them from the learning experience. And they go on to explain some other topics, but it's really just made me rethink that. And this same author recently facilitated a session about connection, and she was able to foster meaningful connections while still giving people the ability to choose whether they participated in the chat or on audio, whether they turn their cameras on or off. So it even showed me this is possible, but I get the human desire to see that. So it's an interesting conundrum for sure, but just wanted to share that little excerpt there.
This is super interesting. And thanks so much for sharing, Tolu. Okay, I'm going to give my first. I think that when you're facilitating virtually, you have a reduced number of, for lack of better words, a reduced number of different channels that you get information from. You have a reduced set of senses that as opposed to what you are facilitating in person. I totally agree that if you rely on just one of those set of senses, say if you just rely on the video that you see from people, and you think that, okay, that's going to give me all the information that I ever need, and I can just facilitate based on that, then you're just as wrong as relying on, I don't know, only audio or just only on what's happening in chat, etc. But I do think that if you're a skilled facilitator, then having more of those senses when you're facilitating virtually is going to be helpful, as long as you're aware of their limitations. And I think that that's what your excerpt was super clear on, Tolu, there. I mean, it's about being clear on the limitations, honestly, of just relying on that one channel. And it might make you biased. It might make you, or it might make you wrong in assessing what people are actually, how people are actually saying. So, anyways, sorry for the rant. I do think that being on video is important, but I do think it should be both a choice from the participant, and I do think that the facilitator should be aware of the limitations of that. Super cool. All right. Any other reflections before I move on? Because I think that this was
we had two experiences, Jacob. One with people in Saudi Arabia and another in China. And it was so interesting because on the main room, no cameras on, black screens all the time. And we kept going, and we put people in breakouts for the discussions. And in Zoom, you can see if people open the cameras and the mics on the breakouts, and they were just full on. So everybody was with cameras on and discussing. And back in the main room, poof, cameras off. But it's part of their culture. So for us at the beginning, it was a surprise. And then we discussing with the client, say, yeah, people do this, and they don't like to be on camera with the teacher or any instructor in the room. They have lots of respect. They use the chat, but they never had the cameras on. Okay. So it works sometimes in some cultures.
It's very
and adding to that, I think the facilitator has to adapt, because it's very weird when you are doing something that is participatory and people are. You don't feel people, but you have to adapt in their culture. And It's difficult sometimes, but it's important. Yeah.
I think sometimes a lot of these conversations are like extremely difficult because you may be right. It's their culture and let's adapt. Again, the majority of our team is in Asia, and I live in Indonesia, and some things are just cultural practice, but other things like just work better if it's done the right way, and maybe they are just not fully aware of what the optimal way for running a workshop is, for instance. And again, it depends a bit. If it's a huge session, then a lot of individual faces don't care, but if it's, say, only 6 people in the session, then it really does matter whether whether you're able to interact directly. So I think that sometimes it's very difficult to kind of gauge, hey, where am I being culturally sensitive, and where do I actually want to drive best practice? And I'm just gonna leave it there. All right. So one thing I do want to leave just a very short amount of time for is I initially called this session I actually forgot, but something around butter scenes. With the, I think it was something along the way of the next revolution in virtual facilitation, which is extremely pretentious, and I apologize for that. But what we spend our days figuring out is like, how can we build the best possible tooling and for virtual facilitation? And that's very much what we focused on when we were building Butter as a video conferencing tool here initially. We thought that building a video conferencing tool built ground up for facilitation, allowing us to set up a lot of things, like you saw the polls I ran, like some of the flashcards I used, timers, music, etc. A lot of that is quite powerful in terms of being able to set up, and back to the whole planning thing, being able to set up all of that up and simply run it during the session helped you offload a lot on your mind. Now, we have gotten, well, I don't know whether we've gotten smarter, but we've at least learned more. And one of the things that we did see is that there's a people are migrating to 3 overall video conferencing tools. Actually, I'd say almost only 2 video conferencing tools, namely Zoom and Teams. We again, Teams is a necessary evil for a lot of people. They are improving a lot, I will say, but still they have some way to go. Whereas Zoom is for many the preferred tool of choice, and still acceptable in large organizations. We also hear that a lot of facilitators have tried to push. Thanks, Tolo. Yeah. See, that is. I've heard similar expressions for roughly 60 to 70% of the facilitators that I interview. So, yep. So what we kind of try to figure out is how can we work around this? How can we work around the fact that you're forced into using a video conferencing tool that might not be that of your choice? And for us as a company and as a software, of course, how can we work around the fact that Butter as a video conferencing tool is not actually acceptable in a lot of large organizations where they only let people use Teams. So that is why we are building a new product. And I guess, like, for you guys that experienced Butter the first time, it's like, okay, I just experienced this product. Now you're talking about another product. The thing is, we're trying to kind of figure out what is the future tooling of video conferencing, and how would that of virtual facilitation, and what would it look like, and what's the best way of building something there. So we're building something that I'm going to show you a very early alpha prototype of. Again, take this more as a thought experiment into what some tooling for the future of facilitation could look like, and some thoughts on the problems that exist in facilitation. So I just pasted a link in chat. And if you click that link, then something will open up in your browser. And I do apologize to you, David. This only works on desktop or laptops for now. So if you just plop in there, you'll be prompted to enter your name, and that is then you'll see a lovely welcome. And I can see quite a few of you guys are in here now. Yes. Let me know if you're not. Again, it's so early that I can't even see how many people are in there. I don't have any senses at all on that part, but I'll show you guys a little bit here. So I can also screen share in for you guys who are not in there. So, but I will recommend you guys to be in the link that I shared. So again, this is Butter Scenes, it's based on kind of three things that we learned from facilitators and we from interviewing facilitators here quite frequently. And first is that a lot of facilitators are still using presentations in their sessions. Again, you guys also mentioned that some might go through I love the whole fast forward to what online facilitation is 5 years from now, like the 8-hour read the slides aloud online events declared felony, right? It was beautiful because so many people are doing this. It's an unavoidable part of the workflow, but it's super one-way. Second thing that we heard was Canvas tools can overwhelm a lot of participants. We heard from facilitators that have chosen not to use Miro and Mural, even if they were a great tool for particular sessions, simply because the onboarding was too long, or people weren't familiar enough with it. And thirdly, using loads of different tools can overload the facilitator, and energy is zapped every time you're overloaded in that way. So that's why we're building Butter Scenes, which is to help facilitators create and run engaging, dynamic, and cohesive experiences. So it's kind of a thought of, okay, if we want to build a facilitation tool, what could that be like? A tool just built for that. And we landed on something that was a mix of three different things. First thing is a standard presentation tool, like slides or PowerPoint. Second thing is Mentimeter, or like an engagement tool like Mentimeter, Slido, Kahoot, like tools used for kind of engagement moments. And the third thing is whiteboards, collaborative whiteboards like Miro and Mural, but way more controlled in a way where people are actually able to collaborate. Okay, so that's all nice and good, but what does this actually look like? Well, we've got polls built in here, and you'll see now that you're actually able to interact with this. You're able to click it, right? That's kind of the first thing around scenes, right? So you've got the presentation format. You're able to interspace the content with activities. Got the open-ended poll here. Yes. Okay. There's a lot of golden lovers here. That's pretty cool. I do love goldens too. Yes. We've got, again, word clouds, right? So first thing that comes to mind. And yes, beautiful, right? So again, you're able to have your open-ended polls here. This was exactly the same as I used an open-ended poll in Butter, right? This is just a word cloud format that are popping up here. And that's nice, right? This kind of gives a Menti vibe. There's something about that. What we wanted to go beyond was to kind of go beyond that and also make more complex stuff. Okay, this is medium complex, right? I mean, so you can stamp, what's the feeling right now? You can just plop yourself there, right? That's beautiful. So also able to use this in icebreakery formats. But where we really think that some of this is getting more interesting is also for more collaborative purposes. So we're also able to have like controlled whiteboards. Like one of these things that you often see is like, we have a Miro activity, but everyone's zooming in, zooming out, and dragging people around, right? Okay, so if we just had to like put simple notes here, what could this be like? So stuff. Yes, and okay, we probably need to lock down have a lockdown stickies functionality, but again, it's more constrained. Everyone's seeing the same thing, and you're able to collaborate on the same type of activity. We've this is an early alpha prototype, right? So we're visualizing, oh, you have individual sticky boards for everyone, and then when you click, then everything's collected together, and like there's a lot of ways that this could be made into to be improved. But the overall concept is this whole constrained exercises where you as a facilitator control what people experience. And of course, if you want, the big shebang, then we have also integrated Miro directly into this. So you can run like an exercise where you have, this is fully collaborative, by the way. So this is a full Miro board that you're able to edit into and write stuff on and facilitate just as you would, right? So you'll be able to have a flow where you have a number of theory slides, then you have a poll, getting people in there, then you have a little reflection exercise, and boom, like maybe you spent the next half hour in a Miro board if you already built all of your things with just a single link, right? So you're able to share just this one single link, and then people are able to facilitate or to participate just in that. Do I have more stuff? I apparently have more stuff. Oh yeah, like here we go. Reflection exercises as well, right? Little timer and stuff, right? Now I'm back to simple stuff again, right? Videos, because we all need that. Yeah. Now, this is all cool, so nice. Looks a bit complicated, looks a bit much, huh? But we're very inspired by how can we also make the back end of this as simple as possible. So if you now just look at my screen share in Butter here, you'll see we basically built this as a simple slide builder. So you're able to create either content slides with, say, a heading here, like much stuff about facilitation or interesting things, and then I can either generate an image of a facilitator. It takes a little bit of time. Let's use what happens by right facilitation.
And Jacob, on
yes.
the browser, it just shows session has ended.
Yes, if you go back to the video conferencing browser again, the Butter browser.
Nice. You're showing the backstage.
Exactly. I'm sharing backstage, right? So this is absolutely nothing to do with facilitation, but all right, I take what I get. Yes, so you're able to create content slides pretty easy. You can drag and drop and stuff, right? So we wanted something simple, not something huge, full-blown. We can't even build, take a lot of time to build a full-blown presentation tool. But then you're also able to add these different activities or tools, right? So you're able to add in multiple choice tools, right? Left or right, left, right, center. And these will be able to be run here directly in the scenes as I showed before. And a big thought is then also being able to connect the various things. So you connect the various activities, right? So you might have one open-ended poll where you ask people's opinions on a lot of stuff, and then that flows into a multiple choice poll where people have to vote for the various things, just like a dot voting exercise, for instance. And that may then flow into a prioritization exercise on a Kanban board where people have to prioritize, etc. So what we really want people to be able to do is create kind of full workshops in this one tool. So that's a little bit about our thinking about what, again, very pretentious, the future of facilitation, but again, some of the tooling around the future of facilitation should look like. It should be extremely simple for participants, and that's always something we want to build for, right? Just click one link and then you're in that participation experience. Right now, it's a little bit of weirdness of the video conferencing tool, and then you have this other tool. We're trying to fix that, but I think we've got some ideas on that. We want it to be facilitator controlled. So extremely important thing, which is not the case in a lot of other tools, is this whole idea of like the facilitator needs to know what the participants experience and needs to control what the participants experience, because otherwise people might get lost and you might even know it. not even know it. And thirdly, like this creation of extreme levels of interactivity, and that's down to the whole multitasking bit, because if people are forced in a positive way to participate constantly, then it is very difficult to then you pull people back, and it's difficult to multitask. So yeah. Oh yeah, Tolo. Yes, you can export. So that's one of the things we're kind of trying to figure out: what formats do people want to export for, what use cases, etc. We're not doing it for, hey, I created a slide deck, please look at it. No, it's more like, hey, we've gone through this workshop, and here's the documentation for this workshop. Here are all your, like, oh, you wrote down that exercise. Here's a personalized document for you where you have that reflection exercise output, for instance. So that's more of our thinking on the documentation bit and exporting. And yeah, Aubrey, exactly right. So this is very much for the people that are logged into to Zoom and Teams, and we've taken a lot of the thoughts from building Butter as a video conferencing tool and kind of pulled that out and said, oh, if we want to create some level of interactivity together with others, then this could be kind of what it looks like. Yeah. Right. I hope that all makes sense. I know whether you guys have any questions, more questions on that. Yeah, go ahead, Fernando.
So one thing that probably will preventing people to start using scenes right away is that you have to recreate your content or transfer these contents into scenes sometimes. So how is this interaction? Can you bring like stuff from Butter to the scenes and from slides, and how do you import things to save time?
We're able to import everything as PDFs. So if you have a PDF and then you're able to import it, and it'll populate each page in the PDF as a slide in scenes. We had a bit of an internal discussion on this, because it's going to be we're going two paths. One thing is a non-editable way of the PDF, right? And then you might have a jankiness or disjointedness in the visual appearance of what you're creating in scenes in the PDF. The other way that we're going is actual reading, and again, you can do a lot of stuff with AI these days, so actually reading the PDF and what's in there and then recreating it as a fully editable document in scenes. And that's kind of that's kind of the gold standard that we're going towards, but we want to make it super easy. We also looked at Session Lab imports, where you're able to import full Session Lab what do you call it, Session Lab sessions into scenes, and then create scenes for each of these, and it's able to transfer stuff into activities, so it knows this activity is that activity, and then create it. So yeah. Cool. Yeah, we're almost at time, so I'm happy. I actually don't have that. That was I know that was not a very big flourish to kind of end on, but that was kind of my what I wanted to show you guys. Talk a little bit about your experiences in facilitation, and then try to connect them with some of the stuff that we're doing from a software perspective. Yes, go ahead, Linda.
It's sort of an unfair question for you, but it seems like, for whatever reason, Google Jamboard is going away, and it just didn't get widely adopted. So why does, as you think about that, why not use more of something simpler like that as your template versus Miro, which you've always got two different groups. People love it and are whipping around, the people are completely lost. Versus on a Jamboard, where you take everybody down to a really simple level, and if someone gets lost, it's got 5 minutes of practice and they're going to be up to speed, versus it's going to take them a half hour plus. Anyway, so I asked that, and also I guess I'm just showing my what the hell that they couldn't make something so simple exist for a longer time.
Yep, I think that's a super fair question, and I actually do think that we're thinking of Miro as more let's look at different Miro templates and what people are creating there, and let's find a simpler, more workshop-y focused way of creating this within Butter scenes. And I think that's where I'm just going to caveat this with alpha prototype. So we are definitely aiming for something that is way more simple to interact with, such as Jamboard. So yeah. Oh yeah, and Padlet Sandbox as well. It's been has also been a big inspiration. So thankful for mentioning that. Yeah, I hope that makes sense, Linda. But it's such a balance, right? Yeah, Tolu.
I shared it in the chat and then I couldn't figure out how to like uncue myself.
That's all right.
Where do I click? Yeah, I was just going to say Padlet Sandbox, which is, I think it's only maybe a month old at this point, is being touted as a new replacement for Jamboard. And I like it for the reasons that Linda just mentioned in terms of it's really simple. It's not an infinite canvas, but they've also added to it in terms of being able to add like multimedia content that you couldn't add in Jamboard before. So I know I'm planning to use that with faculty in about a month for a workshop that's coming up as a alternative to the more complicated platforms.
That makes sense. And that's also where we are commenting on it from our perspective and what we're building in scenes. I don't think we're looking to build even just a whiteboard. Like even we're trying to think it's fine with a whiteboard, but are the interactions in a whiteboard really useful in some of these types of exercises or activities that we're planning? Like, do people like look at what you guys just did? You're dragging those sticky notes all around. It's like, okay, sticky battle, right? And that's not what you'd want in such. You actually just want people to kind of fill out the freaking stickies, right? Or put stickies there, right? So the moving around, like, is that necessary? So we're trying to kind of boil, like, trying to look at a lot of the different activities that are the most frequent in workshops and trying to boil those down into the few simple interactions that are needed for them to really work, while not missing out on the creativity that's necessary to make them unique. So it's interesting. It's an interesting challenge. Yeah, Aubrey?
Oh, I was just going to ask, and I'm sure you like spilling the whole beans on your roadmap is, it's probably still coming together. But one thing I was curious about is thinking about tools like Kahoot or other like quiz type things, interactive elements like that, because I'm someone who uses a lot of online facilitation for education and training related things. I've also have put together, had a little bit of a developer hat lately on as well, and built some like interactive game concepts designed to work on a live stream. So I'm curious if that's where you guys, like, if your head is there or if that's something that's kind of you're thinking about, because, I'd love to be able to be like, all right, we're going straight from these slides into a Kahoot style game, or even something fancier, like here's our rip-off of Jeopardy that's not called Jeopardy, but it's totally going to play like Jeopardy, and you guys are on teams together. Like that kind of stuff I think would be cool.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yes, right now our roadmap is semi up in the air, or like not up in the air. It's getting formulated as we speak almost. I will say like our primary focus is getting the Lego blocks, right? Like getting the building blocks, which to us are the different activities and the ways that people interact with that. So that's what we're focusing on now. And to get those right, we're looking at, okay, what are the most frequent activities that we see in workshops, and how can we make sure that people can recreate those within Butterseeds? And as we move through that, and as we do, like, again, I've literally spoken to over 100 facilitators in the past 3 months. So as we move through these and figure out what they are, then we'll get there. And that for sure also includes quizzes. Although based on what people use, I think stuff like Menti polls and stuff comes before the quiz style elements. If that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. Cool though.
Thanks. Yeah. So again, if I have to wrap up some of this stuff, right? I mean, our thinking of what the future of facilitation is can look like from a software perspective is definitely, well, as you say, Carolina, like the less is more. Like, again, something that is very simple for participants, but extremely powerful for facilitators, and very flexible in terms of what kind of tool stack that's used. Cool. Yes, Fernando.
Just a quick question for you, Jakob, as the CEO and founder. If Zoom or Microsoft knocks at your door to buy Butter, what will happen? Besides you getting rich.
Let's just say that, I mean, it depends. The price, if Microsoft knocks on my door, as opposed to others, will be, around 1.5 to 2x. But I mean, everyone has a price, right? Gotta eat. Yeah, but you say it's not my preferred buyer. Tulu, on the educational institutions. So I'm just taking the last two comments here, if that's all right. Tulu, yes, we have, we during COVID, a lot of educational institutions were using us, but many educational institutions went back to in-person, hence is why we haven't focused too much on education. Plus, the sales process is but yes, it's been used a lot. Yeah.
Let me say something. I think that negotiating with Microsoft must be like a negotiation between David and Goliath.
But we all know how that one ended, right? So, yeah, all right. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for the questions. I did the badoots. For a feature. I guess.
Any other question?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was just thinking it's good to have you, Jakob, here. So I don't know if you have more questions for Jakob, or if it's just close. What do you think?
Anyone? And my first email. I have a lot of
Jacob sound it's getting weird, or it's just me?
No, it's me too.
Sorry. Can you hear me now? Well,
yes.
Okay. I think I was just speaking in the wrong direction of my beautiful butter mic. No. So my personal email, my LinkedIn, and a community of facilitators that we have with Butter. Feel free to connect with me. Ask me anything. Yeah.
I just impressed, and so good to see someone who is open to listen to others and to have feedback. So the way how you do it, Jakob, it's amazing. So just be here for us and showing all the features and everything that we can have, but also to be open and, and get better as we go, and to have a community as facilitators, because I believe that together we do a better work. Not just me or Fernando or someone else. It's just we all together. And so having someone who is working with us, it's amazing. So thank you so much for coming. And and let's get together often.
And just saying on that, honestly, what you guys are doing and as facilitators is an incredible piece of work. And I think of course, for the work that you guys do in and of itself, but I think that facilitation is probably the most important skill in the future work. And that's why I'm spending my life building this, right? Because I think that it's the only way that, for instance, remote companies can work in any way. You need the facilitation. And I think it's something that's missing sorely from a lot of in-person companies as well. So, yeah. Thanks for doing the awesome work for you guys. Hey guys, I will leave. I promised my wife that I will be off this and cook dinner, so I'll be very unpopular. But appreciate very much having you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jakob, for your time, your wisdom, your efforts, and thanks everybody to come. See you next time.
So good to see you.
Good to see you, Fernando. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hasta luego.
Twin Peaks.